Hello, this video aims to introduce the topic of probability to a junior cycle mathematics class. Probability and statistics make up strand 1 of the junior cycle mathematics syllabus. By the end of this video, you should be able to acknowledge the significance of probability in the real world, understand and be able to identify the probability scale, and recognize the benefit of digital media in assisting learning. The topic of probability is one of particular importance. Probability and likelihoods of outcomes surround you all the time and affect you in your everyday lives. It is important to be aware of this and to use this information to help you make informed decisions. As you grow up, you need to think about your actions and what the consequences of these actions will be. It's important to know how to use probability when you make decisions about your future, particularly in choices about how to spend your money. You will find links between this topic and many of your other subjects. The first is in PE and sport. For example, you may hear yourself asking, what is the likelihood of the school football team being beaten in their next game? You may find links with geography when looking at potential for earthquakes to occur. For example, the likelihood of an earthquake occurring in Japan is much more likely than one occurring in Ireland. Throughout history, probabilities are used through looking at statistics and gathering evidence. You could look at what the likelihood of Hitler winning World War II was. Also, in science, probabilities are used to predict the outcome from an experiment. So what is probability? Probability is how likely something is to happen. You might also hear it called chance. If something has a low probability, it is unlikely to happen. Or if something has a high probability, then it is likely to happen. Probability can be expressed as a fraction, decimal, or percentage. Let's look at some real-life situations where probability is used. Probability is used in sport to try and envisage outcomes of leagues and tournaments. It is used in politics to forecast outcomes of political elections and referendums. The medical profession uses it to foresee a likelihood of children inheriting medical conditions and diseases. Therefore, an area of our lives where probability is important is our health. For example, if you know that people in your family have heart disease and you develop high blood pressure when you're an adult, then you know that you have a higher probability of also developing heart disease. You also see probability on television programs such as X Factor and I'm a Celeb, when predictions are made of who may win. And you will encounter it throughout your studies and education. Now, let's look at the probability scale itself. Probability is shown on a scale between 0, which is impossible, and 1, which is certain to happen. Let's look at some examples of these. It is certain that the sun will rise tomorrow. Therefore, it has a probability of 1. It is likely that you will get a blue marble if you randomly pick from these 5, because there is a 4 in 5 chance. There is an even chance of getting tails when you toss a coin, because it has a 1 in 2 chance of occurring. It therefore has a probability of a half. It is not likely that you will get a 6 when rolling a dice, because the probability of this is 1 in 6. And it's impossible to roll an 8 on a dice, therefore the probability of this is 0. Now, come up with some of your own events and consider where they would be placed on the probability scale. If the probability scale was represented by fractions, it would look like this. Again, the scale only goes from 0 to 1, and a half represents an even chance. Alternatively, we could use decimals or percentages on this scale. We can look at it on a table like this. Certain is the same as 1 on the probability scale. An even chance is equivalent to a half. Not likely is equivalent to 1/6. And impossible is 0. Now, let's look at how to work out a probability. To do this, we are going to use a fair die. When throwing a die, there are 6 possible numbers the die can land on. For this example, we want to work out the probability of throwing an even number on a die. So in this case, you are interested in throwing a 2, 4, or 6, which means you are interested in 3 numbers. The probability of getting an even number on the die is 3 out of 6 chances. We write this as 3/6, which is equal to a half. Therefore, the formula for finding probability is the number of favourable outcomes over the total number of possible outcomes. Let's recap on some of the key words. The first is probability. This is how likely something is to happen. It may also be known as chance. We had fractions, decimals, and percentages. We identified probabilities that were certain and impossible, and those that had an even chance. Having watched this video, you should now be able to acknowledge the significance of probability in the real world, understand and be able to identify the probability scale, and recognize the benefit of digital media in assisting learning. Thank you for listening.